My name, Ava Marshall, 31, and until 3 weeks ago, I genuinely believed my life was settled. Not perfect, not fairy tale perfect, but stable in a way you can lean on. I had a decent job as a civil engineer in Austin, a nice apartment that I paid for myself, a reliable truck that was already paid off, and a fiancé I was supposed to marry in 6 weeks. Notice I said was supposed to, because that wedding isn't happening anymore. The honeymoon isn't happening. And the relationship I thought was my future, it collapsed so fast it felt like someone kicked the legs out from under a table I'd been setting for 3 years. I've been sitting with this story in my chest like a stone, heavy, sharp, the kind of thing that makes you replay conversations at 2 a.m. and wonder how you didn't see it sooner. So, I'm going to tell it from the beginning. I met my now ex-fiancé, Ethan Caldwell, about 3 years ago through work. His marketing firm was partnering with my engineering company on a commercial development project, one of those shiny, mixed-use complexes that developers love to brag about. We had a kickoff meeting in a glass conference room that smelled like new carpet and burnt coffee, and Ethan walked in like he already owned the building we hadn't even designed yet. He was charming, fast-talking, confident, always smiling like the world was slightly in on his joke. He had this way of making everyone feel seen, like you were the most important person in the room, even if it was only for 30 seconds. That first meeting, he made a comment about how engineers always looked like we were holding the weight of the world in our spreadsheets. I remember smirking and saying, "That's because we are." He laughed like I'd just said the funniest thing in Texas. After the project wrapped up, he asked me out. Nothing dramatic, just, "Hey, you want to grab tacos this weekend?" Like it was casual, like it wasn't the start of something that would swallow 3 years of my life. We started dating quickly, and honestly, for the first 2 years, it was good. The kind of good that makes you stop questioning. We did weekend trips to San Antonio, Houston, little getaways where we'd book a hotel, eat too much, and pretend we were the kind of people who didn't have Monday mornings. We cooked on weeknights. We binge-watched shows. We fought about stupid things like whether pineapple belonged on pizza and then laughed before we went to bed. Ethan was into fitness and golf. I was into hiking and basketball. We weren't identical, but we fit, or at least I thought we did. His friends seemed cool. My friends liked him. Our families got along well enough to make holidays bearable. Everything was checking the boxes of what I thought a good relationship was supposed to look like. So last October I proposed. Yeah, I proposed. Before anyone starts, it wasn't some girl boss moment. It wasn't about proving anything. It was just, I loved him. I believed in us. And after 3 years, it felt like the next step. We were in Colorado, on this scenic overlook he'd been obsessing over for months. The air was sharp and clean, the kind of cold that makes you feel awake. The sky looked close enough to touch. I had rehearsed what I was going to say like a presentation, because that's who I am. If I'm going to do something big, I plan it. I got down on one knee, said the speech I'd practiced, and held out the ring. Ethan cried. Real tears. He covered his mouth, nodded like he couldn't speak, and finally whispered, "Yes." And then, without even standing back up fully, he pulled out his phone. "I have to tell everyone," he said, laughing through tears. He posted it immediately. Instagram story, then a post, then a caption full of hashtags. At the time, I thought it was just excitement. Looking back, it might have been the first clue, not a red flag exactly, more like a hairline crack. The ring cost me about $12,000. That was a stretch, a calculated stretch. I'd been saving. I wanted to get him something he'd be proud to wear. He'd dropped hints, subtle at first, then not subtle at all. He wanted a certain style, a certain look, a certain kind of ring that said, "I'm taken," and it cost money. I delivered exactly what he wanted. He seemed thrilled at first, but 2 months after the engagement, things started getting weird. It wasn't a single moment. It was like a slow leak, quiet, easy to ignore. Ethan started mentioning his ex-girlfriend more. Her name was Madison. At first, it was casual. "Oh, Madison used to love this restaurant too. Madison and I went to that venue once." She would have laughed at that. It didn't feel like a threat. People have pasts. I wasn't the jealous type. I wasn't going to be the woman who policed what he was allowed to say. Ethan and Madison had dated for about 4 years, college and after. From what he'd told me, they broke up because she wanted something serious and he wasn't ready. The classic story. He said it was mutual, drama-free. They stayed on good terms, but weren't really in each other's lives anymore. That narrative started changing around March. Suddenly, Madison was texting him more often. I'd be sitting next to him on the couch and see her name light up on his screen. It happened so often that it stopped being surprising, and that's the part that scares me now. How quickly you can normalize something that's quietly disrespecting you. When I asked about it, Ethan always had an answer ready. Oh, she's going through a tough time. She's dealing with work stress and needed advice. She just needed someone who understands her. And every time he said it, he looked at me like he was daring me to be the villain. So I swallowed it, because I wanted to be the cool fiancé, the secure woman, the woman who didn't feel threatened by an ex. My best friend Jade did not swallow it. Jade has been my person since college. No filter, no patience for nonsense. The kind of friend who will look you dead in the eye and say, "You're lying to yourself," even if it hurts. We were grabbing drinks one night in early April when I mentioned Madison. Jade set her glass down slowly and stared at me like I'd just admitted I was considering joining a cult. "Ava," she said very carefully, "his ex suddenly reappears right after you put a ring on his finger, and you don't see a problem?" "She's just a friend," I said, even though I didn't like how defensive my voice sounded. Jade leaned forward. "When's the last time you randomly started texting an ex-boyfriend about your feelings?" "That's different." "How?" "They have history." Jade's laugh wasn't amused. "Exactly, that's the problem." I tried to brush it off. I told myself Jade was projecting. She'd seen messy relationships. She assumed the worst. But she shook her head and said something that stuck. "Just watch your back. I've seen this movie, and it doesn't end well for the person who keeps trying to be understanding." A month later, Ethan asked me if Madison could join us for drinks with some friends. He framed it like it was a favor, like he was being a good guy. "She needs to get out more," he said. "Meet people, and we'll already be downtown. It's not a big deal." And I said yes, not because I wanted to, because I wanted to prove I wasn't insecure. Because the moment you say no in a situation like that, you become the controlling fiancé. You become the obstacle. You become the reason he can't be the hero in someone else's story. So I agreed. We met at this bar downtown. Dim lights, too loud music, the kind of place where everyone pretends they're having fun, even if they're exhausted. Madison showed up wearing designer jeans and an expensive-looking blouse, hair perfect, makeup effortless, but calculated. She was taller than me, by an inch or two, and had that polished marketing girl energy, smiling like she knew exactly how she was coming across. She hugged Ethan like she'd been waiting all week for it. Not a quick, friendly hug, a lingering one. And then she looked at me and smiled. "Hi, you must be Ava." Her tone was sweet, perfect, the kind of sweet that makes you feel like you're being sized up. The whole night, she kept finding ways to bring up inside jokes, memories, places they'd been together. Nothing overtly disrespectful, just enough to remind me that they had a world I wasn't part of. Ethan seemed energized. He laughed harder than he usually did. He leaned closer when she spoke. He looked at her like he was remembering something. And Madison touched his arm when she talked, lightly, like she was testing what she could get away with. I tried to stay calm. I smiled. I nodded. I played the role. But every few minutes, I'd catch myself staring at them like I was watching something I didn't want to understand. At one point, Jade pulled me aside near the bathrooms. Her eyes were sharp. "Ava, are you seeing this?" "She's just being friendly," I said automatically. Jade's jaw tightened. "Friendly? He hasn't looked at you in 30 minutes. You're his fiancé, and he's acting like you're the third wheel." I swallowed. My throat felt tight. Jade leaned in, voice low. "This is disrespectful, and the worst part? He's letting it happen." I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend Ethan, defend my choices, defend the life I'd pictured. But the truth was, Jade wasn't wrong. When we left the bar later that night, the air outside felt thick, heavy, like the city was holding its breath. In the truck, I tried to bring it up gently. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to be accused of being paranoid. "Hey," I said carefully, hands tight on the steering wheel. "I noticed you and Madison seemed really comfortable tonight." Ethan's head snapped toward me. "What does that mean?" I forced a small laugh, tried to soften it. It kind of felt like I was intruding on a reunion. He didn't laugh. He got defensive immediately. "What are you talking about? We were just catching up." Then he sighed like I was exhausting him. "God, Ava, I can't believe you're being jealous about this. I thought you were more secure than that." And there it was. The flip. The moment where I became the problem for noticing something that was happening right in front of my face. My cheeks burned. My grip tightened on the wheel. "I'm not jealous," I said quickly. Too quickly. It was a little uncomfortable." Ethan shook his head like I was embarrassing him. "Madison is going through a hard time. I'm being there for her. If you can't handle me being a decent person, that says more about you than it does about me." I went quiet. "Because what do you even say to that? If I pushed, I'd be the villain. If I backed off, I'd be swallowing something that was already starting to taste like betrayal. So I backed off. I apologized. And I told myself it was fine. But that night, lying in bed next to him, I watched the glow of his phone reflect faintly on the ceiling while he texted Madison, and something in my chest whispered, soft, persistent, terrified. This isn't fine, and I wish I could tell you I listened, but I didn't. Not yet. By the next morning, I'd already started doing that thing I hate admitting I do. I replayed the night in my head like security footage. Madison's hand on Ethan's arm, Ethan's laughter, too easy, too loud. The way he leaned in when she spoke, like her words mattered more than mine ever had. Jade's face when she pulled me aside. The look on Ethan's face in the truck when he said, I thought you were more secure than that. That line didn't just sting. It rewrote the rules of the relationship. Because now, any discomfort I expressed could be labeled insecurity. Any boundary I asked for could be called controlling. Any normal human reaction could be spun into a character flaw. And Ethan knew it. Maybe not consciously at first, but he learned how effective it was. The next few weeks blurred into a pattern that felt small in the moment, until it didn't. Ethan texted Madison constantly. Not once in a while, not checking in, constantly. At first it was little things. His phone buzzing during dinner, him glancing down, thumb moving fast, that half smile he'd get like he was having a separate conversation in his own head. I told myself, don't be dramatic, it's just texting. Then it was during movies, during errands, during conversations with me. He would ask me a question, something simple like, do you want Thai or Mexican tonight? And while I was answering, his phone would buzz and his eyes would flick down without even thinking, like his body was trained. And the worst part? He didn't apologize, because apologies imply you did something wrong. And in Ethan's world, being supportive of Madison meant nothing he did could be wrong. One night we were eating pasta at the kitchen island. I'd cooked. I'd even bought the fancy bread he liked, the one that came in that brown paper bag that made it feel like a treat. We were halfway through dinner when his phone lit up again. He picked it up, started typing with one hand, fork still in the other. Something in me tightened. I tried to keep my voice casual, like I was asking about the weather. So, what do you two even talk about this much? Ethan didn't look up. Just life stuff. Life stuff, I repeated, smiling lightly like I wasn't bothered. That's a lot of life stuff. He sighed, like I was asking him to explain basic math. She's struggling, he said, and I'm one of the only people she feels comfortable opening up to. The word only hit me like a slap. Only? I asked. Now he looked up, eyes sharp, warning me not to go where he already knew I was going. Ava, he said, soft but firm. Don't make this weird. There it was again. Not I understand. Not, I'm sorry. I know it's a lot. Not, how can I make you feel secure? Just don't make this weird. As if I had the power to create weirdness out of thin air, like I was the one summoning the storm. I swallowed. What kind of struggling? I asked anyway. Quieter now. Like work, family, mental health? Ethan's mouth tightened. I can't really talk about it, he said. I blinked. Why? Because she told me things in confidence. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. So, Madison can tell you things in confidence, I said carefully, but your fiancé can't even know what category it is. Ethan's eyes flashed. Ava, he said again, and my name sounded like a warning label. She's a person, not a threat. And I'm not going to betray someone's trust just because you feel insecure. My throat went tight. I could have screamed, I don't feel insecure, I feel disrespected. But I'd learned the cost of pushing back. So I nodded, forced to swallow, and said, okay. And then I hated myself for saying okay. Because the moment you accept secrecy in your own relationship, you teach someone they can lock you out and still call it love. Jade noticed before I even admitted it. We met for coffee one Saturday morning. I was exhausted, but I didn't want to say why, because saying it out loud made it real. Jade studied me for about 5 seconds and then said, you look like you haven't slept in a week. I'm fine, I lied. She leaned back. No, you're not. He's still texting her, isn't he? I didn't answer right away. My silence did it for me. Jade exhaled through her nose like she was trying not to explode. Ava, listen to me. This is not friendship. This is emotional reattachment. He says she's struggling. So? Half the planet is struggling. That doesn't mean your fiancé becomes her emotional support boyfriend. I flinched at the words because they sounded too accurate. Jade leaned in. He's training you. Every time you question it, he calls you insecure. And every time you back off, he learns he can keep doing it. I stared down at my coffee, The foam had already melted, leaving this sad brown swirl. "We're getting married in 6 weeks," I whispered. And Jade softened, just a little. "I know," she said, "and that's why you're scared. Because if you admit this is wrong, you have to admit it might ruin everything." That was the truth. It wasn't just Ethan. It was the venue deposit, the caterer, the invitations already sent. My mom calling every few days asking about flowers. Ethan's mom texting me pictures of rehearsal dinner dresses. It was the whole world building momentum toward July 15th, like a train that couldn't stop. And I was standing on the tracks pretending I didn't hear it coming. Wedding planning became this weird theater where I did the work and Ethan existed. I'd sit at the table with spreadsheets, vendor emails, payment schedules. Ethan would sit across from me with his phone face down until it buzzed, and then it would flip over like a reflex. Sometimes I'd catch him smiling at the screen. Not at me, at her. One evening, I was finalizing seating arrangements, trying to figure out how to keep my aunt from sitting near my cousin's ex-husband, because apparently that was going to be a thing. Ethan was supposed to be reviewing the caterer contract. Instead, he was scrolling, thumbs moving, eyes bright. I stared at him for the long moment and realized something that made my stomach drop. He looked more alive texting Madison than he did planning our wedding. "Ethan," I said, keeping my voice even, "can you please focus for 10 minutes? He looked up sharply. "I am focusing." I gestured at the phone. "You've been texting for the past 20 minutes. He rolled his eyes like I was being ridiculous. "It's not a big deal." "It feels like a big deal to me." And the second I said that, I saw it. His expression shifting. Not guilt. Annoyance. Like I was an inconvenience interrupting his real life. "Madison is having a hard time," he said. Slower now, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. "I told you that." "I know," I said, "but we're supposed to be planning our wedding." "We are," he snapped. "And you're acting like I can't do both." My heart pounded. I was tired of being calm. Tired of being reasonable. Tired of being the woman who swallowed her instincts so she could keep the peace. "I don't think you are doing both," I said quietly. "I think you're choosing her, piece by piece, and you're hoping I'm too invested to call you on it." The room went still. Ethan stared at me like I'd slapped him. Then his mouth curled into that familiar practiced disbelief. "Wow," he said. "So this is what we're doing?" "What does that mean?" I asked, voice tight. "It means," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I can't believe I'm marrying someone who's this paranoid." There it was again. Not apology. Not reassurance. Attack. I felt my eyes burn, but I refused to cry. "I'm not paranoid," I said. "I'm paying attention." Ethan scoffed. "You're overthinking everything. Madison is not trying to steal me from you. She's a friend. A friend you text more than your fiancé." His jaw clenched. "Do you want me to just abandon someone who's vulnerable? Is that what kind of person you want me to be?" He always did that. He always framed it like morality. Like I was asking him to become cruel when all I was asking for was balance. I wanted to scream, "Why is her vulnerability more important than my trust?" But the words stuck, because the truth was, if he couldn't understand that on his own, explaining it wouldn't fix it. And that scared me more than the texting. The night everything finally snapped wasn't dramatic at first. It started like every other wedding planning night. We were sitting at my kitchen table going over final details. The venue was booked. Invitations had been sent. Photographer hired. DJ secured. Between the two of us, we'd already put down about $20,000 in deposits. And since I made more, my contribution was slightly larger, about $10,000. The wedding was scheduled for July 15th. The honeymoon was in Cabo, an all-inclusive resort that was already paid for, about $4,500. I was reviewing the caterer's contract, highlighter in hand, when Ethan started scrolling through his phone. Again, I looked up, ready to ask him to focus, when he said, "Hey." His tone made me pause. It wasn't playful, it wasn't annoyed. It was serious, but weirdly casual at the same time, like he was about to tell me he couldn't make dinner plans. "I need to talk to you about something," he said. Something cold slid down my spine. I set the highlighter down slowly. "What's up?" I asked. Ethan took a breath, and the way he avoided my eyes told me, before he even spoke, that whatever he was about to say was going to change everything. Ethan stared at his phone for a second longer than necessary before finally setting it face down on the table. That alone should have told me everything. "Okay," he said, folding his hands like this was a business meeting. "So, Madison is going through a really rough time right now." Of course she was. I waited. "Her mom's health isn't great," he continued. "Work has been stressful, and there's some personal stuff she doesn't really have anyone else to talk to about." My chest tightened, but I kept my voice neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that." He nodded, relieved. "Yeah, it's been a lot." There was a pause. A long one. I looked at him, and Ethan inhaled, exhaled, like he was bracing himself. She really needs support right now, he said, and I'm one of the only people she feels comfortable being vulnerable with. There it was again. Only. And, I repeated, slower now. Ethan's fingers tapped once on the table. She has this family thing coming up in July. My heart skipped. What kind of family thing? It's her mom's birthday, he said. And with the health stuff, it might be one of the last big celebrations. The room felt suddenly too small. Okay, I said carefully. What does that have to do with us? He finally looked at me then, and there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Expectation. He asked if I could go with her, Ethan said, for emotional support. I stared at him, not blinking, not breathing. He? I repeated. Her? He corrected quickly. She asked. I didn't care. The words barely registered. You're saying this now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. A month and a half before our wedding? I know the timing isn't great, he said. Not great. Ethan, I said slowly, we have a honeymoon booked. We're getting married in 6 weeks. I know, he said, nodding too fast. I know, but Madison really needs me that week. That week. The week of our honeymoon? I asked. He hesitated just long enough to answer the question. Yes. I felt something shift inside me. Not a crack. A snap. You want to go with your ex-girlfriend to her mother's birthday, I said, during our honeymoon. When you say it like that, it sounds bad, he said quickly. How else should I say it? My voice was eerily calm. Please, enlighten me. He leaned forward now, defensive energy rising. Madison is going through a crisis. Her mother might be dying. I'm sorry, I said. Truly. But how does that make this my responsibility? He frowned. It's not about responsibility. It's about compassion. So our honeymoon is just a vacation? I asked. Something optional? He sighed, like I was exhausting him again. Some things are more important than a trip, Ava. That's when it hit me. Not like a wave, like a switch flipping off. All the little moments I'd brushed aside. All the red flags I'd labeled as insecurity. All the discomfort I'd swallowed to keep the peace. They lined up in my head with terrifying clarity. This man did not respect me. He never had. You want me to cancel our honeymoon, I said, so you can provide emotional support to your ex-girlfriend at her family event. She's sick, he snapped. How can you be so selfish about this? I stood up, not dramatically, not slamming anything. I just stood. I need to think, I said. There's nothing to think about, Ethan replied. Either you support me being there for a friend during a difficult time, or you don't. The way he said it, like I was failing some moral test, made my hands shake. I'll give you a couple hours, I said, grabbing my keys. I didn't drive around aimlessly. I drove straight to Jade's apartment. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and said, What did he do? I told her everything. The texting, the secrecy, the drinks, the honeymoon request. By the time I finished, my voice was hoarse and my chest hurt like I'd been screaming, though I hadn't. Jade didn't interrupt once. When I was done, she just shook her head slowly. Ava, she said, your fiancé just asked you to cancel your honeymoon so he can attend his ex-girlfriend's family event. I stared at the floor. Do you understand how completely unhinged that is? She asked gently. I don't know what to do, I whispered. Yes, you do, Jade said. You just don't want to do it. She handed me a beer and sat across from me. Let me ask you something. If I came to you with this exact story, what would you tell me? The answer burned in my throat. That he's choosing his ex over me. And? That he doesn't respect me, I said, tears finally spilling. That I'll always be second. Jade nodded. And what would you tell me to do? I took a long drink. Leave. There it is, she said softly. We talked for 2 hours. About sunk costs. About how love doesn't ask you to erase yourself. About how Ethan had been pulling away ever since Madison came back. And how the engagement hadn't pulled him closer. It had just exposed the imbalance. You know what else is weird? Jade said at one point. Madison's mom's birthday just happens to be the same week as your honeymoon. My stomach dropped. You think that's on purpose? I think Madison knows exactly when your wedding is, Jade said, and I think she's testing him. And he's failing, I whispered. I drove home around 11 p.m. Ethan was in bed, phone in hand. Hey, he said, did you think about what we talked about? I did, I said calmly, and you're right. His face lit up. We should cancel the honeymoon. He sat up, relief flooding his expression. Really? Ava, thank you. I know this is a sacrifice, but it means so much that you're being supportive about... I'm not done, I said. His smile froze. I'm canceling the honeymoon because there's not going to be a wedding. Silence. Pure, stunned silence. What? He whispered. I'm calling off the wedding, I said. We're done. He sat up fully now, panic rising. Ava, you can't just... I can, I said. And I am. He started crying, real tears. You're overreacting, he said. I wasn't choosing her over you. I was just trying to be a good person. A good person doesn't ask their fiancé to give up her honeymoon for an ex, I said, my voice shaking now. You've been choosing Madison over me for months, text by text, moment by moment. He couldn't answer, because we both knew it was true. I want you out of my apartment by the end of the week, I said. I'm staying with Jade tonight. My phone buzzed the entire drive back. Messages, calls, apologies, anger, bargaining. I turned it off, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. I woke up the next morning on Jade's couch with the kind of clarity that only comes after something finally breaks. Not the fragile, shaky clarity where you second-guess yourself every 5 minutes. The solid kind. The kind that settles in your bones and says, this hurts, but it's right. Jade was already up, coffee brewing, sunlight cutting through the blinds. You okay? She asked gently. I nodded. Yeah, I think I really am. And that's how I knew I'd made the right choice. By 9 a.m., I was sitting on Jade's couch with my laptop open, a legal pad next to me, and a list titled, Things That No Longer Exist. First call, the venue. Hi, I said, keeping my voice steady. This is Ava Marshall. I need to cancel my wedding scheduled for July 15th. The coordinator's voice softened immediately. I'm so sorry to hear that. Then came the firm part. With less than 6 weeks' notice, the cancellation fee is 100% of your deposit. That's $8,000. I understand, I said. Please proceed. I hung up and checked it off the list. Second call, the caterer. Same sympathy, same loss. Third call, the photographer. Fourth, the DJ. Fifth, the hotel block. By noon, everything was gone. Total losses came out to about $15,000, with roughly $10,000 of that being mine. Each call hurt, but not the way I expected. It didn't feel like ripping off a bandage. It felt like cutting chains. Jade came home for lunch and found me mid-call, calm, focused. You're really doing it, she said, almost impressed. Already done, I replied. Every deposit, every contract, gone. She whistled low. Damn. Then she paused. What about the ring? I blinked. What about it? You spent 12 grand on it, she said. You're not letting him keep it, right? I hesitated. I hadn't even thought about it. In Texas, Jade continued, engagement rings are conditional gifts. If the wedding doesn't happen, you're legally entitled to get it back. My stomach twisted. What if he already sold it? Then that's theft, she said simply. Text him. Give him a deadline. So I did. I need the ring back by tomorrow evening. If not, I'll file a police report. His response came in under a minute. Are you seriously going to be petty about this? It cost me $12,000. I want it back. This isn't negotiable. I need time. You have 24 hours. He tried calling. I didn't answer. He tried calling Jade. She answered once. Stop harassing her, she said. Return the ring or deal with the consequences. That ended the calls. By that afternoon, my phone was blowing up again. But now it wasn't just Ethan. His mother, his sister, 2 of his groomsmen, all saying variations of the same thing. You're being unreasonable. He's devastated. Weddings make people crazy. Can't you at least talk to him? So I sent one message. Just one. Ethan asked me to cancel our honeymoon so he could attend his ex-girlfriend's family event. I chose to cancel the wedding instead. Please respect my decision and do not contact me again. Then I blocked most of them. Life is too short to explain basic self-respect to people committed to misunderstanding you. That evening, Ethan showed up at Jade's apartment. I knew it was him because I could hear the crying through the door. Jade answered and stepped into the doorway, blocking him. He doesn't want to see you, she said. I need to talk to her, Ethan sobbed. Please. You said everything you needed to say when you asked her to cancel the honeymoon. I made a mistake, he said, voice breaking. Madison manipulated me. She made me feel guilty. I fell for it, but I choose Ava. I choose us. Jade looked back at me. I shook my head. She stepped aside just enough for me to see him. Red eyes, no confidence, no charm. Just a man unraveling. Where's the ring? I asked. His face fell. Ava. Where is it? He fumbled in his jacket and pulled out the box. I opened it, checked, then closed it and slipped it into my pocket. Thank you, I said. We're done. You're really throwing away 3 years over one conversation, he cried. It wasn't one conversation, I replied. It was 3 months of you choosing her over me until you finally felt comfortable asking me to give up our honeymoon for her. I love you, he whispered. No, I said quietly. You love the stability I provided. You love the idea of marriage, but you didn't love me enough to put me first. Jade closed the door. We could hear him crying on the other side for a few minutes. Then footsteps. Then silence. The next day, I took the ring back to the jeweler. They offered me 700. I took it without hesitation. That money went straight to paying off credit cards and covering wedding losses. Freedom apparently comes with a receipt. The voicemails kept coming. They followed a pattern. Pleading. Bargaining. Anger. Victimhood. One line stood out. Maybe Madison was right about you all along. That told me everything I needed to know. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from an attorney. Ethan was demanding reimbursement for his wedding expenses, about $8,000. I forwarded it to my lawyer. He laughed. She has no case, he said. We have documentation of why the wedding was canceled. 1 letter later, the threats stopped. Then the aftermath started rolling in. Ethan and Madison did attend her mom's birthday together. Photos hit Instagram. Fancy restaurant, cozy poses, caption about being there for the people who matter. Turns out her mom wasn't dying. Just a health scare. Exaggerated. Manipulative. Predictable. 2 weeks after our breakup, Ethan and Madison were officially together. Couple photos, soulmate captions. Half the comments supportive, half calling it out. Karma clocked in right on schedule. Friends told me Madison was already stressed. Ethan was distant, canceling plans, still on dating apps. History repeating itself. As for me, I booked a solo trip to Colorado. I threw myself into work. I started therapy. I slept better. I breathed deeper. And for the first time in months, I wasn't shrinking to make someone else comfortable. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. If your partner asks you to cancel your honeymoon for their ex's family event, run. Life is too short to be second in your own relationship. I'd rather be alone than feel alone next to someone who never truly chose me.